back to the studio. We just finished last month block number 7 of the Zen Garden, and the Zen Garden is a kit that has 12 blocks in it. It is an applique kit, and all of the pieces in the kit are laser cut and they are already pre-fused with Steam Seam 2. So you'll see in the kit, each of the pieces that's on the front is in the packet. And the laser cutting means that all the pieces are really accurate, and they're already pre-fused, so all you have to do is peel, place, and press. So we'll be explaining that process as we go through the block, but we're going to be doing a really beautiful butterfly block today, and this is block number 8. So I'm going to go ahead and pull you in closer, and we'll unpack the kit, and we'll get started on block number 8. I just pulled out 3 pieces together. The first one is a color cover sheet. This is really handy in case you have pieces that are of similar size or shape but different colors. And then we have our full-size pattern placement guide. Not only will this come in handy today for putting our pieces in the correct place, but you could also save this if you wanted to reproduce this later, cutting out your own pieces with Steam Seam 2 backing that you would apply yourself, or if you wanted to use a needle turn applique technique using this pattern or these components. I just gave it a quick press with my dry iron just to get out these creases, because I don't want those creases to translate into the misplacing of components onto my background. So I'll put that aside. And then the last piece I have is my instruction here, which is in each kit. I'll put that aside here, and then I have all my applique pieces. Before I pull those out onto my dark background, I'm going to go ahead and pull out my light box and put those on there so that I'll be able to find them. I have my color cover sheet. I have my placement guide and my freshly pressed block. I'm going to straighten that up just a little bit, and you can see I've laid out most of my pieces just about where they go to the side, so I can go ahead and get started. And I'm just going to start peeling off some of these paper backing and putting some of these pieces where they belong. And already I can see I've got the wrong green, so I'm going to just stop and switch those out. So between the color cover guide and the actual pattern, it really helps to get the right size on some of these pieces, even for me after doing it all these years. You can see here how the orange disappears underneath, but it also shows a dotted line, and that dotted line just indicates that that's something that goes in between or underneath another piece. Kind of working my way down from the top. It's funny because even if I bend over just a little bit at this angle, it's like not a very comfortable angle. These papers always peel off really pretty well for me, but if you have problems, you can always score the back of the paper with a sharp instrument like the tip of your scissors, a seam ripper, a sharp pen, and where you score it, then you can bend and then catch that edge and pull the paper up. So it's very easy. If you ever have a piece where the Steam Seam 2 appears to be sticking to the paper but not the fabric, you could just lay the paper back in place, repress it with the iron for a few seconds, and then let that piece cool back down, and that will have fused to the paper the to the fabric rather, and then you're good to go. Sometimes during the manufacturing process that will happen. I've only had it happen maybe twice in all of the pieces that I've done, and I think probably I've done more than just about anybody else, having done them in the studio here. Even when I worked at a quilt store, I always loved the butterflies. Just about every time we had fabric come in that had butterflies on the fabric, I almost always bought it. I think it's great for adults and kids. It's a symbol of transformation. They're symbolic of long journeys. If you ever get to the point where you're having trouble seeing where the pieces go, you can always remove the background and start with your top pieces and work down. So I have only the two upper layers of the butterfly wing. I'm going to work with those first and put those in place. And then after I get these in place, and I don't have to worry about those orange pieces anymore, then I can go ahead and put this one in place. And now I only have to worry about the green placement. See how it's fighting me today? It's sticking to my finger. I think that's the stickiest it's ever been. Then you can go ahead and put your piece back and do the last remaining layer. I'm going to do my green piece again. But this is the beauty of the process, is that it's all repositionable. As many times as you need to. Then we have these last two pieces. These are the butterfly antenna. And this material is like an ultra suede, which is at least 2 or 3 times as thick as any of the other batik. And they're really, really small, which means that the piece of Steam 2 has to do really double, triple the work to hold that piece of ultra suede in place until we fuse it. So I like to press these down really hard when I get them into place and try and let some of the warmth of my finger go into holding that into place. So I've really pressed hard onto that. And so I have all the pieces in place now. What I'm going to do is go ahead and remove my light box and switch it out for my Teflon pressing sheet. So I can pull these things aside. And the other thing that I need to do is just draw the line for my antenna. And what I usually use for that is a Micron Pigma pen. This is an archival ink, and it's safe for fabric. And I'm using a 01, and it's just a black. And it's permanent. So that's what I will use to draw my line. So I have all my pieces in place, and so I'm just going to give the applique a little coating of mist, plain water, to activate the Steam-A-Seam 2, and I'm going to close up my Teflon pressing sheet. Now that Steam-A-Seam 2 is kind of like dry concrete. It has to have water to activate the concrete. So does Steam-A-Seam 2 require some steam or water component to activate that adhesive. Without that, you're not going to get the permanent bond that you want with your sewing or craft project. If the applique is fused properly at this point, it will be permanent, no matter how many washings your quilt goes through. It also does not require to be top stitched. It is permanent the moment that it is fused properly. So top stitching is not a requirement. It's just something that you could choose to do. And we don't ever do any top stitching here in the studio because I don't do it well enough to enhance the project. It would only detract from the project. We do quilt when it's a quilt project, but we don't top stitch the edges. And again, it does not require it. You cannot overfuse Steam-A-Seam 2. Steam-A-Seam 2 is not going to simply evaporate because you held the iron there too long. You would burn your fabric long before the Steam-A-Seam 2 would evaporate. So evaporation is not going to be your problem. The glue adhesive is not going to vanish on you. 9 times out of 10, the problem is going to be that you underfused or didn't use moisture or water. If you're getting gumming on your needle, which is what I hear all the time, people are always saying, what kind of needle do you use so you don't get gumming on the needle? It's not what kind of what kind of needle you use. It's how do you do this step? How do you fuse properly? And if you do this step properly, you don't have to worry about what kind of needle you use. So always, 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 when I do the front, I always go ahead and flip the block over, and I'm going to mist it again, and I'm going to fuse again from the back, because some of these pieces are compound pieces, and I want to make sure that, like I said, everything is activated and everything is fused properly. We want to get to it now. We don't want to have to go back at some later date and try and refuse a piece that's like flipping up in the wind because we didn't quite catch it. I like to use the Teflon pressing sheet also because it protects my iron from getting glue on it. It protects my fabric from anything on the sole plate transferring to the fabric. It protects the edges of my applique to keep them pristine in case I accidentally am pushing the iron side to side. It helps keep all the pieces in place. Just a little bit of an insurance policy to prevent the fabric from scorching. So I really like the Teflon pressing sheet for all those reasons. And just when I think it's just about all finished, I'd like to go over it just to make sure I've got it nice and dry and fused. So now we have the block all fused in place. The last thing I'm going to do is take my little Pigma pen and draw in my little antenna lines. Pigma pen, I don't believe, requires heat setting, but I've got the iron on, I've got the iron out. Might as well go ahead and do that while I'm here. And just like that, you have a finished block. This process is so easy, it really makes doing raw edge applique a lot of fun. And you can really bring in a lot of different people with you to join. You could do this during a girls' night out or a girls' night in. You could do this with family members. There's a large variety of ways you could do this. I think even with a classroom full of kids, to do this for a teacher or a teacher's aide, I think they could all participate if they were of a certain age. So it's certainly easy enough for that. But this was block number 8. Next month we'll be doing block number 9, of course. And I want to thank you for stopping by the studio today. Please feel free to leave any comments that you may want to say in the comment section. And of course, feel free to subscribe. Until next time, please take care of yourself and take care of each other. And I hope to see you again soon. All of these things will be going away.